Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's Master Podcast on the topic Navigating Consumer Conscious. I am Dipti, your host for the day. I'm from MBA first year, and when I heard this term for the first time, neuromarketing, I was really fascinated because it brings two different industries together. And to know this much more better, we have two academic experts with us, Dr. Tanaya ma'am and Dr. Juhi ma'am.
Deepti, so glad to be having this conversation with you. Both of us are very excited. I'm from the Department of Marketing, and my colleague is from the Department of Psychology. Together, we are very passionate about the neuromarketing lab and the synergies that we are exploring here.
Yes, absolutely. So, like ma'am said, the reason why we're sitting here and talking to you is because ma'am is an expert in marketing. Her expertise, her years and years of experience and education has been in marketing as well as for me. I have done my background, my bachelor's, my master's, and my PhD in neuroscience using EEG, eye tracking, things like that.
Okay, thank you so much, ma'am. Now, to begin with this, like people who are hearing this term for the first time, neuromarketing, what is it, and how you can say that actually it is different from the our traditional research part?
Okay, that's a very valid question, I think. And I think this is one of the first challenges that we see a lot now, that a lot of people do not know what exactly is neuromarketing. So, the idea about neuromarketing is combining, like she mentioned, it is combining neuroscience with marketing. The idea is a lot of people like us, we do not actually know impulsively what we desire and what we like. So, neuromarketing basically taps into that. It's understanding what is going on inside the subconscious mind, the unconscious mind, and how to make our brands, our products in such a way that we can have much more marketing skills and we can attract much more target audience, as you call it, if I'm not wrong, ma'am.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, adding to what Professor Tanaya is saying, Dipti, it is very important that marketing decisions are backed by insights. So, one of the bad, branding that marketing has is that the decisions lack performance metrics, right? Which is where market research comes handy. But if you think of traditional market research, it is guided mainly by either consumer surveys. Now, surveys have an inherent problem with the accuracy of the data for the very reason it's a self-reported data. So many a times consumers are unable to articulate their feelings well. And at times, it is also a problem that we as humans suffer from our cognitive biases. For example, social desirability bias. So, for example, if I ask you something with regards to my teaching in the class, my feedback, you would want to please me because it is a socially desirable behavior, right? So, many a times, survey data is inaccurate. Second kind of market research is grounded in observation. So, while observation perhaps gives better insights in terms of the precision of the insights, still, it has been observed that when participants have the knowledge that they are under observation, it makes them change their behavior, which again becomes a problem in the accuracy and truthfulness of the data points. And the third part, when it comes to exploratory techniques in the traditional market research, things like projective techniques, blind tests, etc., they are more precise in answering the what's. So, for example, what product out of Pepsi and Coca-Cola would a consumer buy? But the problem lies in the hows and the whys. That is not explainable even by blind tests or the techniques that are more thematic or exploratory in nature. That is where our neuroscience brings in data, which is neural data, which is biometric data. Now, it is like a lie detector. Our brains cannot lie at a subconscious or a conscious level. The areas of the brain that light up, they actually show you why is a certain decision important. Is it emotionally important? Is it rationally important? Or is it just the subconscious liking a particular product or a particular advertisement? So, marketing data, when it is backed by neuroscience, is almost 100% efficacy. It has 100% efficacy and is very, very effective in insightful and precise decision making.
Thank you so much, ma'am. That was actually a valid answer to my question. Now, my second question would be that, from where this concept came up, like where did we hear it first time, and how, I mean, both are very different. Then how is neuroscience affecting the market?
Okay, again, a very good question and very valid in today's world. So there is no specific aha moment or a eureka moment that got the whole concept of neuromarketing. It was basically gradually marketers and found that a lot of products are being judged differently from the surveys that, like she mentioned, there are surveys, there are feedback forms that we give to our customers to see what they like and what they don't like, and like evolve and change and modify our products accordingly. But a lot of days, like she said, we do not a lot of times we don't know, or we want to hide or disguise or present ourselves in a different way. So to overcome that, the best way of doing is using EEG. Like for instance, very popular in neuromarketing today is EEG. A little costlier, but it is much more effective because you can see exactly like a lot of times you hear the word dopamine, reward systems. So these are actual like there are centers in the brain which actually make this happen. Like your behavior of liking something or looking at something and being happy. Like for instance, if I give you a Cheetos packet, you'll be much more happier. You may be much more happier than that to have that rather than if I give you broccoli. So if I tell you next time, okay, fine, the ma'am is going to get you food, you'll be like, okay, she's going to get me broccoli. Not not eating to your reward system. So that is the whole point over here, that over time, marketers, consumers, consumer behavior researchers found that you need to look inside the brain, the biology of our human behavior. And like for instance, she mentioned Coke and Pepsi. This is actually a very classic example of what actually drove marketing to neuroscience. It was basically when they did a survey giving people in a blind study, they gave Coke and Pepsi, both of them, and they did not tell which is which. By just the taste bud, Pepsi got more popularity because it was sweeter. But when later on with fMRI and MRI, like they did a, like in 2000, there was a follow-up, and they used MRI just to fMRI, that's functional magnetic resonance imaging, right? Just to see what is actually happening inside the brain in real time, and which is actually enticing or eliciting the reward system. What they did was they did the same study, but they in the machine, and what they found was once the consumer knew that the product was Coke, they preferred it more. Their reward system was heightened not in the region which is supposed to give you related to taste. It wasn't a sensory bud or sensory processing that was affected or elicited. It was basically your branding, what your self-image, what makes me feel awesome. Like for instance, if I give you an iPhone and if I give you an Oppo phone, iPhone, right? So it's how I perceive my self-image. That is basically happening in the middle prefrontal cortex. So that's over here. But that is elicited for Coke. But when they saw the blind study that Pepsi, the taste was higher, like given more preference over Coke, then the sensory motor cortex was active. So there's a difference. Like you actually get to the bottom of it. Okay, all right, even though Pepsi has better taste, but Coke has more popularity.
Absolutely.
So this is how the things changed and evolved. And obviously a lot of neuroscience techniques came into, like eye tracking, galvanic skin conduction, all of these things came into play, and things have been evolving, and hopefully inshallah India as well is going to evolve even more.
Yes, ma'am. So, ma'am, from this, I can make this statement that mostly consumers they take decision is very subconscious, right? And if you see from neuromarket perspective, how is brain responding to such market stimuli?
Okay, so there is a very good book by Daniel Kahneman and Tversky, both Nobel Prize winning academics in economics, right? Thinking fast, thinking slow. So while most of us would want to believe that we have elaborate and logical, thoughtful decision making for most of our decisions in life, it is interesting to note that neuroscience studies actually show us it is not the way decisions are made in real life. It is the system one, which is the start of our decision making, which is subconscious. 95% of human decisions, be it related to consumption, be it related to relationships, be it related to professional decisions, happen at a subconscious level. So your prefrontal context, which is the logical processing, and the neocortex, they do get activated, but it is the limbic system and the reptilian brain which gets activated first. So this is what we are trying to do in our neuroscience lab also, wherein we would like to invite students and expose them to stimuli with regards to digital or physical products, colors, shapes, advertisements, etc., and track their biometric and neural responses to the stimulus or the stimuli that they are being exposed to understand at the subconscious level what is it that their brain and their physiology is reacting.
Absolutely, ma'am. So, ma'am, while I had conversation with both of you, I got to know that this is something really very important, and we are very honored and privileged that our university has this thing. But how do you think like other universities or everywhere and worldwide neuromarketing should be introduced, and how important it is?
So traditionally marketing, and I would not say it is misconceptualized, but it is highly characterized to be a domain which is creative and everybody perhaps is looking for a big idea. Deepti, you would want to you would be able to relate to it very nicely because you have your own branding and marketing firm. So you would know that all the brands are vying to occupy customers' share of mind.
Yes, ma'am.
It is very important for students to be exposed to causality, precision marketing which is on point. So if you talk of marketing matrices for traditional marketing, reach, frequency, etc., they give us some insights. But then the thing is, reach and frequency are very crude measures of who is actually looking or being exposed to a media. Engagement or arousal is something which is not being measured. Even if you look at digital media, click-through ratios and other matrices that we look at, these are very crude measures. It's like GDP in economics, right? While GDP is an indicator of the economic health of a country, it is a crude indicator. It is not a very precise and insightful indicator. That is where, if you look at the neural networks, for example, Madden talked about fMRI study for Pepsi versus Coke, right? So while Pepsi tastes better, as is exposed in blind tests, Coca-Cola, the brand equity, is actually physically grounded in the neural networks of the consumer mind. And that is where neuromarketing becomes very important for students to understand where is it happening, how is the share of mind being generated, and how is it being translated into consumer action. So when it comes to consumer action, there's always a gap. There's a knowledge to action gap. So for example, if I were to ask you, and this is actually a study, would you buy sustainable packaging? Pernod Ricard has recently started sustainable packaging, right? Most likely your answer would be yes to that. But then while 87% of the consumers in this particular study done by Forbes said a yes to buying any sustainable product or sustainable packaging, less than 30% of them actually translated that into an action. So purchase intention is okay, but then would the actual purchase happen is where your neural networks would be able to eliminate that to you. Causality. Now causality also becomes very, very important. It is important for students to understand the concept of causality because most of them, when they are exposed to data analytics also, they think about correlations, right? Now, the future is towards moving to skill-based competencies and roles, right? So designing experiments, establishing causality, making inferences which are precise, clinically on point is something students would learn through the neuroscience lab.
Absolutely, ma'am. And I think to make students aware about neuromarketing, neuroscience, and all these things, we need to have a neuromarketing lab. And our university does have neuromarketing lab. So can you explain that what do things we actually do in neuromarketing lab? What kind of research happens there and how is it actually beneficial for students?
Okay, so like we've been talking about, it's basically using neuroscientific techniques like EEG, that is electroencephalography, fMRI, like we've already spoken about. And there's one more, a little more cheaper and much more affordable and much more doable, practically possible techniques are basically galvanic skin conductance. Like for instance, if I am under stress or if I'm happy, my heartbeat changes, my perspiration changes, like the rate of perspiration also changes. So things change. So galvanic skin conductance basically checks that. So for instance, I'll give you an example. We all are aware of those heartbeat monitoring bracelets that we have. So that's basically based on galvanic skin conductance. So using this, if I see and I throw different bunch of products in front of you, same one. Suppose I'm taking you to I'm buying you a t-shirt, and if I have like 10 types of different t-shirts, if I have that wristband on you and I'm trying to understand your skin conductance, what I can do is you might tell me that, oh, this looks much more decent because the ma'am is getting me, so I can't be, buying indecent clothes, or this is a nice one, looks very sophisticated, goes with my image.
But we all dressed, by the way.
Oh, thank you so much. But yeah, but just because you do that doesn't change the fact that deep down, maybe you like the one which is like a ragtag and completely goth or something like that. So as a marketer, or if I have as a business owner, I would want to tap into the product part. So that's what we do in the neuroscience lab. That system one, you tap into the subconscious of the mind, what we trying to hide. The biology behind our behavior. That is exactly what we want to do. Like for instance, a lot of research we are doing. Like we have EEG machines in our lab. We have a VR goggles. We have metaverse as well. So we are trying to look into experiments, make experiments to see how a website or a logo of the website, what is the heat maps of what entices a consumer, why a person is going to stick to my website. If I'm making a website, why is my consumer coming to there? What can I do to capture their attention more than 5 seconds? Given the today's world's and your generation's attention span, it has become even more competitive to gather and capture a person's consumer's attention. So hence, this is a very intricate and very data-driven study. So you need to feel as well. So you need to do a lot of research based on it. Like giving you a very simple example, like if I if I ask you, would you like to have some kale or broccoli? You'll say yes. And would you like some junk food or some snacks? You might say no. But if I put a eye tracking machine on the vending machine in the university, and every time you pass across it, I can track it very easily. What exactly is enticing you? Which product are you looking? Are you looking at the energy bar? Are you looking at the lace packet? What are you looking at? So this basically helps you tap into the subconscious and unconscious, and that is exactly what we're trying to do in our lab as well.
Exactly, ma'am. And ma'am, as you talked about a lot of tool and technology, and now we are in the era where we are so technologically, devoted, and we need to have it. So, what are some tools and technology that are really helpful in neuromarketing lab?
Okay. I think the best and most popular one and easier for most companies is the eye tracking part, because it's easier. Like any camera, any laptop's camera can help you do that. So eye tracking is the most affordable and much more consumer friendly, I would say. And after that, I think the best and more accurate ones are the ones that actually look inside the brain, like frequencies in the you see they even related potential inside the EEG recordings. So EEG and fMRI and even PET scan, these are different ways of looking inside the brain, that morphology, different molecular compositions of the brain. You understand what exactly is happening inside the brain. So of course, those are going to be much more useful. And we, for that same purpose, our lab has EEG machine with 64 channels, which is amazing. And we have already trying to come up with a lot of different projects where we can ask students to, of course, we encourage students to do the research and we backing them up. You're the next generation of consumers, or you're the next neurostrategists and neuromarketers. So yeah, I think it's much more important that you guys realize that. And hence the whole purpose of making this lab over here was this. And EEG, we have eye tracking so far, and we already have tried to place a galvanic skin conductance. So we should be going somewhere with that as well. Rest, it's all about research, multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary classes, so that, why would BBA MBA students want to get into neuromarketing? Why would psychology students want to get into neuromarketing? So it's basically an amalgam of both the things. So it's very important that even the professors have crosstalks. I think that's what we encourage in our universities.
100%.
Yes, ma'am, absolutely agreed. Now, if we talk about the practical implementation, so how are companies using neuromarketing in terms of like advertising, branding, digital marketing agencies? Like, these are there. So how are they using neuromarketing?
Okay. So while the term was coined in 2002, I think the domain got the star status with the fMRI Pepsi study. in late 2000s, right? So a lot of companies contemporarily are switching to using the precise data by neuromarketing. For example, Netflix. Netflix would want to know which is the thumbnail image that would want you to at least click on a title. So which is the image that would give your brain an arousal, right? And therefore they are using eye tracking to generate those heat maps, right? On the same in the same way, Pampers. So for example, a person who has to buy diapers and a mother is keen on seeing the Pampers advertisement. Should the advertisement have a baby? And if there is a baby, should the baby be looking at the diapers package? Should the baby be facing front towards the person, the observer, or should there be no baby? So neuroscience studies show that while there should be a baby in the image, because images with babies create a certain kind of arousal in the emotional brain, the love and affection centers are activated. The baby should be looking at the package of the diaper rather than at the observer who's looking, for the reason that the focus also should be on the product and not solely on the baby. A lot of FMCG companies are doing product packaging testing through EEG and fMRI techniques, and the data that they get is very, very accurate and precise. So a lot of companies, Lays for that matter, whether a particular segment would enjoy matte finish or let's say glossy finish. So there is no one answer. It would depend on what segment, what quantity, what SKU are you talking about.
Gender, if I'm not wrong. And gender had a play in that. Like, women normally prefer the matte one. They literally change it. Like, sorry to cut you off.
Yes, no.
But like earlier, used to have shiny packets, and normally we don't like, oh, it's going to be, unhealthy. They literally saw this as a difference, that the product's consumption was higher in female proportions when they change it to man, because it sounds or feels subconsciously feels more sophisticated. Oh, it must be healthy because it looks healthier. It looks classier. That's all in the mind. It's all how you manipulate the thing. Sorry, ma'am. Go ahead.
Absolutely. And store layout design, or if somebody was to look at UI, UX design, digital and social media design aspects, visual merchandising, etc. I think neuromarketing helps in precision-based targeting.
Absolutely, ma'am. Now, when students, so suppose there are students who are taking neuromarketing, so how can neuromarketing help in enhancing their skill to understand the consumer behavior? How can neuromarketing make a difference?
At ILM University, we are very focused on having our students evolve with regards to industry evolution, with regards to evolution in consumer psychology and social norms, etc. And of course, technological evolution, right? So we are abreast of that. Our neuromarketing lab also helps in that, in the sense that traditional techniques are okay, but the students have to move on from becoming a generic manager to a skill-based specialist. Data-driven analytics becomes very, very important, along with the creativity and the idea generation part of it. That is where exposing them to causality, wherein they can design their own randomized control trials and in between subject and within subject experiments, controlled experiments, to see how causality is happening, explaining the whys and what's behind a marketing stimulus, be it an ad, be it a color, be it a packaging, etc. When they walk into a company boardroom and tell that this is the eye tracking data and this is the result that the data is showing, that is why I can explain the whys and the hows, because I have the know-how of the theory and the implication of the theory. I think that is going to make our students specialists in the particular domain.
Okay, ma'am. Now, I would like to ask you, neuromarketing can bring manipulation in consumer. So do you think it is a kind of ethical concern that we should be talking about and to be cared of something?
Ethics, when it comes to neuroscience, becomes all the more important. Ethics are very important for marketing, and at ILM University Greater Noida, we are very, very focused on imparting knowledge of management and marketing in alignment with the principles of ethics. So any marketing, and this is a question that comes regularly to marketers, is marketing manipulative? I thought a lot about it, and at this stage, I believe that marketing is not manipulative because it actually helps in understanding the pain and the gain points of a consumer. So it is helpful. What we want to do is we want to design the best product or the best packaging or the best brand elements, logos, sounds, jingles, etc., which would elevate the customer's pain points, give them gains which they actually desire, so the perceived value would be enhanced. So I would not say that we are actually going for manipulative marketing. We are going for precision based targeted marketing to enhance consumer satisfaction and value perception. Also, we comply with the international standards, for example NBSM, when it comes to setting our lab design and user interface. The participants have to have an informed consent and the data is private. So every privacy is ensured when it comes to recording the data, using the data, and also with regards to the informed consent that the participant gives us.
And I think to add on to ma'am, like just like marketing, neuroscience, we are accused of literally experimenting on human brain and looking inside people's brain, complete, invasion of privacy. A lot of time. I know, but see, that is not what is happening here. It is, like she said, it's mostly understanding what is happening inside your brain. It's just the bridging of the gap between what I'm saying and what I'm actually doing. It's like causality, as she said. It is about causality, understanding what I might not know. There are a lot of thousands of things that I might know, but there are a lot of thousands of things I don't know about myself. So how do you understand? It's about nudging towards the truth. It's not manipulation is a very strong and sad word. But researchers in general, I think any kind of research that you do, especially that involves human beings in it, it can be looked from an aspect that is it ethical? But most of these are ethical because we have, like she said, there is always a consent form. Your participant always knows what is happening. Okay, they might not know exactly what thing I'm trying to understand because a lot of times you have to keep it blind. But yeah, they know, you consciously know that you're coming and doing experiment. I'm not going to force you and drag you to it, right? And the second thing, very importantly, is that a lot of these things, a lot of these researchers work only when there is ethical clearance. There are always these ethical bodies, ethical committees, which have to approve them. And there is always a strict inclusion and exclusion criteria, like who can actually participate. Like a lot of people, if like for instance, if you have a lot of tattoos or if you have a stent in your heart, you're not recommend, then you'll be excluded from an fMRI study because magnets, right? You don't want your stents and your the iron in your tattoos to come off, right? That's the whole point. So you have to always be very careful. So it's a very rigorous and a very precise way of understanding what and who can participate in the study, and they're always informed. So yeah, I don't think, and there is actually a whole field coming up called neuroethics, which is also coming in marketing because of course a lot of big companies are using human subjects for understanding neuroscience as well. So for that, you always have to interplay between the two sectors.
So we are very curious people. We are very well-intentioned people.
Well-intentioned is the take-home message here. And
we are working on consumer arousal and not on consumer manipulation.
Yes, we're just nudging you towards understanding your own self. We do not want to manipulate you or, force feed stuff. Oh, or gaslight.
Yeah, gaslight.
How can I forget the Gen Z word gaslight?
So we are not here to traumatize you.
Yes. No, not our intentions.
Absolutely, ma'am. And I think after hearing this session and conversation, a lot of students would want to take this thing.
That's actually what we want.
And now if I see as a student perspective, I would see what is the future. So if students who are coming into this market industry, neuro marketing industry, what would a decade, future 10 years, a decade look like?
Okay, like one thing is like AI has become very important. Right, we've seen how it has been, overtaking a lot of different aspects. But one thing it still hasn't figured out, and hopefully it will not, is understanding the nuances of a human being or our human emotions, basically, like barikiya, as we say it, like the intricacies of the human brain, our human desirabilities, and etc., all those fancy words. That thing AI cannot. So for that point, we need neurostrategists, we need designers, neuromarketing designers. What they would do is tell the AI, because AI is going to do the copywriting, the graphic thing. It's going to do the mechanical part. What about the nuances over here. Like, how do I, like, if I, for instance, Google has this, did this study, 41 shades of colors. It wanted to see which shade to use as a blue, which shade of blue should they use so that they can have much more footfall of consumers visiting their websites. Like 41 out of 41, they figured out one specific combination of color. I think it was purple and bluish, some turquoise color. And once they did, they actually made $200 million out of it. It was about understanding predictability. So had they not strategized it, ki okay, color also, like human being function on the fact that okay, on an average, we believe and we go and we are attracted to specific wavelengths of colors, wavelengths, and this is what you want to tap in. This is where the future is going to go, and AI can't do that. Over there, you need human beings like neurostrategists, neurodesigners, like UX designers. In the future, you will not need much more UX designers. You will need to understand heat maps. Eye tracking, okay, I have a logo, how does it affect me? How many people are going to the menu option? How many are going to the contact us option? What am I doing wrong? What am I doing great? What should I work on? What should I not? This predictability will be much, much better through this kind of thing.
Two things that I can think of is one is AI getting integrated with the neural data to provide real-time customizations. Now, this may sound, people would be skeptic of this. Data privacy and other ethical issues are there. But then think of it, you go home. Let me take my example. I go home and I'm in a mood which is not so good. I have had a fight with my husband, right? So Internet of Things, the AI would, my biometric and neural data would be integrated to the Internet of Things, and the AI would then customize music, lighting, atmosphere, temperature, etc. with regards to how am I feeling currently, my mood and my arousal, right? The second thing I can think of is the wearables, the wearable tracking devices, which could be a healthcare and well-being revolution. So any biological or neural data in case you are stressed or in case you are, for that matter, happy. Your biometrics should be monitored for you to, let's say, what should you be consuming as per the state of your health, as per the state of your physical state, your well-being, your arousal. And that is where I think this is the future wherein our students would be helped a lot through this knowledge in product design, brand design, UI, UX design, color and logo design, visual merchandising. There are so many applications, and we are so excited to get going with this.
Absolutely, ma'am. And thank you so much. It was such a great session with you both, like the expertise you have shared about neuroscience, marketing. And I'm very, very sure students who want to enroll here at neuromarketing thing, you are going to have a boom career, I would say, in next 10 years, because this is something that is coming very different from the common careers we have. And thank you so much for being here, ma'am. It was a lovely session with you.
Thank you so much, Deepti. So we have Deepti is our student. She's our management student. She has her own branding and marketing firm. She wears multiple hats. She's a very good orator. She does a lot of podcasts. She is very active on LinkedIn in marketing. She hosts a lot of events and organizes events, clubs and cultures. She's a very active participant in that. So you can see she's a very good testimonial of how our students are. And we invite you to experience ILM Greater.
Yes, we all,
And our neuroscience lab.
exactly, by default. Yeah, we encourage a lot of students, obviously the ones who are existing in our batches as well. And our whole goal and purpose of this video is to help students understand, like aspiring students understand that what we have here and what we have to give here. And we encourage you and keep looking into scans. I don't know, it's bad.
Yes, they will look into your scans.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you so much.